All right, folks, welcome on back here for another fantastic edition of our Traders Talk workshop here this Tuesday morning, October 3rd. Perhaps I sound clear, actually, but a little bit under the weather here once again. So great to see all of our students and members alike. It's been a bit of an odd week and a half, 2 weeks. So great to see Michael Ravina, Gary, Barbara, Jeff, Lynn, Charles, Mark, and all of us just joining us here. And hey, if you're joining us back on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc., welcome on back. Hey, first and foremost, for all of us on YouTube, Facebook Live, etc., just make sure that you are liked and following on all of our social media streams, including YouTube, that being youtube.com/cybertradingu. And at the end of this workshop, if you are interested in joining us inside our live trading room, just scan that QR code on the top left just throughout this workshop, and you'll get access for the entire week here with us. But with that in mind, right now, BNOX actually going completely against the grain. It's a lovely example because it goes to show that even with the market tanking the way it is and has been, it doesn't mean that there aren't upward opportunities, right? Actually, really quick, just to really go full from the start, for all of us here, just maybe more of our gold, platinum, diamond students, and those of us that have been with CTU for a little while, when the stock market's dropping, what ETF typically is going up then? Inverse to the stock market, right? Which ETF there? Brian and Mark and a few more of us right away. Yeah, SQQQ and UVXY and just the VIX index, right? From Sydney. Yes. We're not following all the ETFs, mind you folks, but just, those two are the two biggest, like most volatile, UVXY and SQQQ. So, no, of course, when the markets are dropping, those are going up anyway. Like that's a given. All right, well, look at this BNOX. This certainly is not an ETF. Bionomics is the name of the company. And back from last week, even back at our on-site course last week, we were trading this. It was in pre-market, made a phenomenal move early in the morning, but then dumped back down. So with that in mind, hey, it obviously could have kept dropping and filled the gap completely. But back from yesterday, while I was out, looks like it ended up having a small recovery. But obviously today and even right now, a stronger breakout. So what I want to do, because with myself being just a little under the weather, even with being here good to go, it's hard to like focus 100%, right? You know what I mean? Like you're at your desk, like you're good to go. Yeah, you're going to maybe take a couple trades, but are you 100%? Are you like lining up 3-4 charts 100%? Not there. So I didn't have the chance to line up this chart yet. Obviously, it was more of a mid-morning run than like a pre-market or market open here. So let's at least just go, in Bookmap here and kind of see why this made the exact move that it made. And to do that, actually, what we may need to do is even go back to Thursday last week. So if I may, I'll probably zip back and forth here a little bit. All right, so Thursday last week was when? That was the 28th. Got to go back even more. Might have to just go back a little bit here. Pardon me. You can tell I'm not 100% with how slow I'm going back on this chart here. So with that, try and go through this as efficiently as possible. But back from the 28th, here we go. This is the pre-market move that it made when we were at our on-site course last week. This is it. Bingo. There we go. Stock went from $1.50 up to $8. For a stock that's up that much, we're expecting a big pullback, right? So with that in mind, of course, we see some profit taking, and the stock ends up making lower highs after the open and then pulls back even more. Question is, because right now it's at 477, 480, where were the best levels that we could have focused on here in order to follow for today even? Because depending on if there was a big iceberg order that got filled, or even just in the sense of following the whole number of levels, given how much this stock parabolically moved up, you typically do want to focus on your dollar levels here to begin. So that being like $4, $3, $5, etc. Those are all lines that I'll look to plot here in order to see how this stock moved today. All right, well, aside from that, at least, were there any just chart levels that actually held here pretty nicely? This is just one little bottom, bounced back up pretty strongly, I guess, from it here from that point. But, was that really a great chart level afterwards? It got chippy around that price later on. It was shaking a lot around it, then broke lower. It was holding this as a little support line here for a little while, and then it broke lower. It wasn't chipping around that price as much, at least. There's a lot more data to work off of here before the close, so let's see. Yeah, I kind of like this level here, the dip point that we had from like 10 o'clock, 9:55 in the morning. It's like 4:45 the price. That just seems like a good chart level. That lines up with 450, but you could just see how well that became resistance later on here. It wasn't really chippy around here. It broke over it. All right, well, it broke right back under it, then held under it cleanly. It wasn't like shaking and rattling through that price badly. So I'll just recognize that as a chart level, if anything. That's all. That's just a chart level. We'll see how that plays out here for this morning's trade. All right, well, if it ends up breaking over 5 and continuing to push up actually as we do this workshop live, let's see, because would there be any chart level that acts as a strong resistance ahead? Like, for instance, here is testing as support, support, support. And it breaks lower from there later on, but it is chipping around there at the market open. Perhaps I'll check the open price, the market open price from this day on the 28th. Let's just do that. What I'm doing, folks, basically is going back, reverse engineering this move, seeing why it made the exact move that it made at the time that it made it. So back from the 28th, when this ended up making this big crazy move, 572 is the open price. To me, that becomes a key level, not just for this given day, but going forward. I don't think today, so far, it touched there just yet, but you never know in this Traders Talk workshop. It would be pretty interesting to see a breakout higher later on and maybe come back at 2:30 for this afternoon meeting. My colleague Rich may show this. So that was basically there, 572. All right. Let's go back to more relevant data, though. That was back from the 28th last week. It ended up making a nice little move back up yesterday morning while I was out, didn't it? So when was that? That was October 2nd right here. Yep. October 2nd, Monday. Okay, so this was yesterday's chart. Made a nice breakout at first. Broke over 4 eventually later on, like tested it, shook around it a little bit, then popped higher. So that would seem good. That would seem as if you would expect to have resistance at 4, potentially get flipped into support. Unfortunately, it tries to here, but then slices right under it, drops. Support becomes resistance once again, and then pulls back. And then heading into the close, it looks like the afternoon, it makes one more attempt where it really makes a nice pop. But again, you would expect over time resistance to become support. And the damn thing is not giving it to you. Just heading into the close right here, right? Or is this? Yeah, that's the heading into the close. I didn't know if that was after hours or not. So at like 3:40 in the afternoon yesterday, it sliced right back under that level. I don't know if we were all watching that yesterday afternoon. Again, I was out. So, hey, if you were looking for a bounce, rightfully so, because it wasn't really holding for as a support level for like a little while now from this given day, from last week on that Thursday, we were saying, all right, for as much buying as we're seeing, resistance should become support. So it is just disappointing that it doesn't happen where my cursor is. Okay. Well, this is the thing with trading. If the stock keeps giving you an opportunity and based off, I don't want to put it as bluntly as this, but just for as often as you are here as a student, and for as often as I'm here teaching this and seeing the same patterns as you all are as well, you'd like to think that you should be following what we go through in class, right? The same patterns play out much more often than they don't, right? So in the sense of, hey, the more times we keep seeing buying over $4, the green over 4, the breakouts over 4, well, not only should it run, but you would like to think at least give us a shot at seeing resistance become support. So what happened today? That leads us to today. I didn't even bring out the book map yet on this trade. So we'll take a look at that in just a moment. But you could tell it was just even here, market open, pop and drop. All right, well, it looks like it's going the other way now. All right, well, otherwise, it begins to turn around, push up. This is where I'll tell you, I wouldn't be as jumpy to take the trade on this candle. But the more times it nips it in this concentration, I could see myself taking it perhaps on this candle here because I'd be expecting that cleaner run. It's prime time trading. The first test of it here, shook down. So support, this should be resistance at least again on the next candle. Was about like 15 minutes later. Well, the more times it nips it from this point, like right here, I could see myself taking that trade if I was watching this, if I was fully prepped up and watching this chart the way I have it set here. But let me ask us, hey, I'm a little under the weather, but I got my same catchphrases. When a stock breaks through a big level, what are we expecting shortly after? Come on. For all of our students here, right? We're expecting a big move. So that's for me to tell you. As soon as it breaks right back below 4, you got to be saying, like, oh, shoot. All right, got to get out. Damn. It's disappointing. Trust me. Like, it looks very disappointing because for as much as it teased it on the 28th last week and yesterday and here, even at the market open, it snapped down bad, but it broke over it. Buying. All right, well, it took a little bit longer. Does this count as a test? It does. This actually counts as a test right here, believe it or not. Crazy upwick, right? And pulls back, but it actually hits $4. The high of this candle is $4. All right, looks like there's more up volume than down volume, right? You know what that means? We likely had some buying interest at $4. Likely had some green. So the more times it keeps testing it here, and then eventually the real pop later on or the next minute after, you get your big move, right? But man, this was pretty tough to begin with, right? Of course, you could say that with how much the markets have dropped, but this is like a low float stock, small cap, low float stock. A lot of these will look to make their own moves on their own accord. So, hey, I just did that kind of shoot from the hip, right? I just did really quick, like, looking at whole number levels and going back on the chart from last week. Well, what about Bookmap? What does Bookmap have to say about this? So I can't pull up the data from the 28th. I don't think I can, at least. But here, what I have is, the data from yesterday morning at first. It popped up and then dropped. Let's see, because I'm going to try and format this here, make it a little bit easier on the eyes, hopefully. There isn't any dot that sticks out larger than the others. 50,000, I set it to right there. So, well, looking at this here, there isn't much big volume at $4. I mean, volume at all really filled at $4. I don't have the market open data. I only have it from like 11 o'clock Eastern through. But it looks like there's a large chunk of volume at 420. And then you could just kind of say there is a lot of volume generally from like 385, 390-ish or so. So could those have been used as levels? Or even, as I'll drag back, was there a level from this morning in pre-market that we could have used? Let me ask you that. That might be a better question. Look at the column that says CVP. Is there a price that sticks out here throughout the whole pre-market session from basically 7 o'clock going into the market open? John says yes. So say it. I am prompting you to say the price. So Ravina and Lee and Joyce all saying 390. That sticks out mighty fine to me, right? Now, that definitely is a lot easier to see than the other example. So, of course, let's see what happened at 390. Still made the same move, mind you, but was there an easier entry? Honestly, with the $4 level right there wasn't much volume traded from it yesterday, but I'd still say that was the cleaner looking level. It was chippy around here, right? It sure was chippy around this 390 here before it broke higher. So really, like, the $4 level was a pretty clean level to take it from. There was one hiccup here where I transparently would tell you, like, right on this candle, if I was watching it, I'd probably take a loss. It's like small loss, in and out, decent attempt, but it didn't give you what you wanted. But then later on, it ends up trying again. It nips it again. And the more times it does it in that shorter concentration, you got to have the confidence to jump in. Now, that's easy to say kind of looking at where it's at now, right? But even if you take 25 cents off the table, on 500 shares, that's $125. On 1,000 shares, that's $250. So if you really think of it as a new trader joining us, That's a hell of a profit on one trade, really. We want you to be trained in the sense of not nickels and dimes every single trade, but the more of one thing that we look to take consistently, meaning, oh, if we can take 20 cents off the table consistently, then we're going to have more confidence to, try and take that 50-cent move when the time is right. Not all the time, but when the time is right. So here it's to say, okay, we know prime time trading is from 9:30 to 10:35 or so, 10:30, 10:15ish. Well, the first attempt at that level was right during prime time. Why not expect that like 25-cent push? Hell, if not a lot more, maybe up to the next level that I have, that chart level. What was it, 444? So, if you look to get out a little under there, you get in a little over the level at $4. What is that, like a 38-cent profit or a 40-cent profit or whatnot? That's an incredible move. Obviously, it breaks even higher than that and goes up towards 5 and then, breaks above that briefly. But we are not trying to be perfect. No one, myself, just it's not even to say that no one is perfect, but if you try to be perfect, you're going to be a losing trader because you're going to get too greedy. You're not going to take the profit when you need to or where you should or where you even want. And then it's going to come right back down and you might go break even. You might make a couple pennies on the dollar, but that doesn't pay the bills, right? So, we are here to actually make real money, right? And, at first you got to do that on maybe 50 shares, 100 shares, very small size. You're not going to make real bucks doing that, but at least the more cents per share that you make doing that, you're going to look to scale up in size and say, okay, well, it works on 100 shares, the 50 shares, even Fausto's, one share that he says will work on 1,000, right? So ended up making a strong move up. Now, hey, what I could at least tell you here is the first test of a major level, I'd expect for it to hold, especially for as much as the stock moves up. So the more and more a stock pumps up and up and up, you got to expect resistance to get hit or a false breakout. All right, well, next whole number level, especially psychological, like it's like half a decade level, $5. I would expect for that resistance to initially hold. So it wouldn't be too much to my advantage if I look to try and jump in as it breaks over 5 the first attempt here. Easy to say given the end result, but just again, we're expecting a big move shortly after a stock breaks through a big level. I'm expecting this to hold, meaning hold perfect or a false breakout. So in the event where this actually nips over 5 pretty quick, yeah, it better be making a big move shortly after on the way up. Otherwise, it's going to pull right back under this level and make a big move the other way. I think it made a much larger move the other way than it made the pop over the level, right? Now, think of it this way. For Sydney, John, Joyce, Lee, all of us here, Ravina, it looks like this really quickly broke over this purple line, though, the chart level I said. I mean, I guess it nipped it a couple times and ran. But that was a pretty sharp pop, though. Like, if you were expecting resistance to hold better there and it didn't, it just ripped and ran. All right, let me ask us, what are we expecting that purple line to now become if this ends up pulling back? Yeah, support. So, with that in mind, let's see what happens over time on this BNOX. I want to go into really quickly, though, a couple of other things because, of course, with the way the market's dropped off in pre-market, I'm always hopeful to see a bounce. I'm always, not perma-bull, but I'm always hopeful to see a nice bounce over time, right? So looking at the SPY at first, we had a nice little move initially, like at the open, right? But I was even saying, got to be very careful here at this point. I feel like we're going to pull back pretty ugly pretty soon. And I said that here at the time. So it popped up at first afterwards. I'm like, ah, man, really? We're going to get a nice run here. I'm happy for that. I'm not trying to short, but, hey, if we just get a clean move up, I'll be happy to be wrong, right? Well, yeah, ended up making lower highs. And right at 10 o'clock, I think some jobs report came out and that tanked the market. So with that in mind, I actually turned my attention to QQQ only because we went over this in the on-site class last week. Bruce Pringle from Bookmap, main educator from Bookmap, was here at Viana Hotel, or there, I should say. I'm in Florida now. But, he ended up doing a great presentation where he was discussing, actually at the time, like ETFs, like for a brief moment. And the Qs just have a little bit better liquidity on Bookmap than the SPY does. I personally like the SPY. Like, I follow the SPY more. But today I said, you know what? Let's just like look at this and see if there's anything out there that sticks out. Is there any concise, or is there any consistent or significant orange line that's going across the page? What, first here at 358? But under that, well, this looks pretty dark red to me. It's like a bolder, more red line. And that's at 357, just next dollar level down. Can I ask you, is there like a really dark red line or anything at all under 357? Anything looking good there at all? No? All right. So today, on this drop off that we had, I was thinking, okay, at first, with the way the markets were grinding up here initially, I thought, you know what, that jobs report came out, but maybe it's a false drop. Maybe it stops people out and then it runs back up over time. But what I was thinking was, let's see what happens at 357 afterwards, because clearly once the news report came out, it broke lower on this next candle or a couple candles later. I said, okay, well, we're gonna have to wait a little bit now at this point if it's going to break lower from here. And all right, well, what's our next support? 357. Okay, so I was waiting for 357 to get tested, and by the time it got tested, you see what I see. My best entries to buy, or in this case, I wasn't buying the Qs here, but it's in the sense of looking for the bounce. We got to see it go under and over, right? This went under and freaking got slammed. That's not good. And it was at that point that I just said, all right, I'm just done. I'm not going to look for any other buy opportunities anywhere. I was looking for trades on AMD all morning, and that was the only stock I was usually in the know of as far as, where the levels were. Again, for anyone catching up to that, I've been on my, not to put it as serious, but on my deathbed. Honestly, it's been pretty rough 4 days, and I haven't been as focused this morning with prepping up all my charts. Well, AMD was the only one that I was, to a degree. So I was looking for a couple bounces on it this morning. I had one trade that was good, but then I lost that profit on the next two trades after, looking for a bounce. And once this broke, once the Qs broke 357 and just smashed it, it didn't go under and over. It went under. That's it. When a stock breaks below support and it drops from support, we'd like to think that support should initially become what? For all of us here in the trading room right now, very quickly to answer, because we always ask this each and every week. Resistance. No surprise. Zero at all. It's a shame. But just at that point, once I saw the Qs break like that, below that support I had, I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to go short because I was kind of looking for that bounce. It's not to say impulsive, but it's not always as easy to flip your mind from bull to bear or bear to bull. I have students on coaching calls with me that say, I don't know how you do it. Well, it's not as often that I do it, maybe every now and then, but it's hard to just change your mindset that fast. Especially if you're more of like a swing trader type, or, just someone that takes a little bit longer to get into a trade, researching, levels or looking up what the company does. So that is where I say, you don't want to be impulsive. You don't want to just jump in. So I didn't go short on any trades after, but it's just to say I'm done. I'm out of bullets, at least for right now. Maybe heading into the afternoon after traders talk on a coaching call, look for a bounce. But otherwise, doesn't seem like we're going to get it here. It looks like, if anything, Qs are going to break lower, coming up below 355. All right, so I just wanted to kind of go over that, and actually with that in mind too, really quick, just a little update because we didn't do Traders Talk the normal way last week with our on-site class as well. Uh, I was looking for a couple swings on Mara from last month, had a couple good ones at first, but then they broke lower, and then even here as we were looking for 950 support, the thing that I was saying was, well, I'm a little bearish on Bitcoin, and I thought that we were going to drop pretty. I thought that like probably back from like mid-September we would have tanked on Bitcoin down to like 23,000, even like lower perhaps. Didn't happen. So I was looking for that drop and coinciding that with Mara and Coinbase. So as this just kept dropping, I had no action in this. It was just, all right, well, I'm waiting for Bitcoin to drop and it didn't. And Mara just keeps dropping without it happening. So I'm wondering what's going to happen to Mara when Bitcoin does make that drop. Right now, Bitcoin's at like 27 and change. It's been holding way better than I thought it was going to hold. So by the time I think that we're going to see that drop. I'm going to hold myself to that. So once we see that crash on Bitcoin, oh man, you're going to get a steady drop off on Mara, like really, well, not steady, but like really bad. This is steady enough, but like probably back down to like maybe there. Dip point from February this year, 546. I mean, you're talking about a huge drop on Bitcoin from 27 where it's at now down to like 23. So you can't underestimate the drop that Mara and Coinbase and all the other crypto stocks that would make, with it. All right, so I just wanted to go over that just as a side note, if anything. Now, this Traders Talk was more of an abridged edition just because we're coming off the on-site class and I've been under the weather really badly last 3-4 days. So I didn't have as many questions come in for today, but I wanted to go over another trade, at least with that in mind, a stock that we traded from this morning, another review, because I didn't line up levels for this trade either, much like the BNOX. I wonder if this is similar. NNOX. We got BNOX and NOX. This one is X-ray imaging, looks like. So, ended up making a nice pop when the market opened up. We had called this out a little early on. It was, prior to 9:45 in the morning. We called this out, breaking a new high, and ended up making a strong run. But the thing that we were a fan of is that this stock made a big run back in April of this year. Not only that, but it dropped all the way back down. So there could be some room to recover. It's made a big pop in the past. There's some evidence of that. So why not, right? Well, I would say the one thing why not would be, the spread liquidity if it was on like a crazy spread. But it wasn't. It was on a good spread. It had good volume out there, much like you see right now. So this was 110% tradable. It was a great move. But hey, that's easy to say in hindsight, right? Where were the better levels for this stock to have made its move from? That's the question, because we'd called it out once it broke the highs here. So if you had missed out on the break of the highs, well, what's the next level? Well, you can, again, go into your whole numbers or even 50-cent levels here, like 7 and 750. So we'll just take a quick look. Well, it's easy to say it topped off around 750 and dropped and then held it really well here. But this didn't test 7 as support. It broke over it, smashed over it. Resistance should become support, right? All right, well, it didn't even touch 7. It went down to like 706. So what's to give? The question is why, right? Was there a way for us to anticipate a clean bounce from maybe 710 or 706 or, not $7 per se? So let's open up Bookmap. Get the heat map open here. 1 second. All right. So we had no business with the stock in pre-market. That's just the first thing. I mean, just flat, not much volume traded, light orders. So when the market opens up, and this does begin to pop up at first, it's kind of a tough to read heat map, I will say. It's like not really. I mean, you had a couple lines here at 7, dark red here at 675, which was a pretty big iceberg order, I'll admit. It was at 32,000, roughly 31,000 shares on the bid. So really, this is what allowed it to your next, so to say, resistance It's about 7,200 shares, so that's something. That's a lot more out there than what there was in pre-market. It's $7, 7,200 shares. So it does break over it. Ooh, this is a nice little instance. It looks like that order actually got pulled, or a good chunk of the order got pulled, but there's still big volume that got filled there. Let's see if there's like a dark pool or a market print that got filled. Yep, there we go. That makes a lot more sense. Okay, so there had to have been a dark pool or a market fill that got hit. So it was about 25,000. I was wondering why this stuck out a lot there after that orange disappeared. So this limit order got pulled, I'm sorry. Yeah, this limit order got pulled, but actually a decent chunk got hit at market, about 25,000 shares, and then eventually just rebroken and ran. So that's what happened off of 7. Still, though, that doesn't explain 706 or 710 as support. There's not much there. So when it pulls back, let's see if there is anything that does stick out. I mean, if you want to call this something that sticks out, it's only about like 10,000 shares. It's a little blip of red or orange. This is a tough heat map to read to begin with. That really is a reach. That's a stretch. I would not say that's easy on the eyes. So the question I like to ask is why? Why did the stock make the exact move that it made? Well, this didn't touch 7. It didn't go under and over 7. It didn't touch 7 as support. It hit 706. Maybe I can go back on the daily chart, see if there was like a closing bell print from like a week ago there. Looks like otherwise big volume filled here. Your next level up at like 718-ish. So perhaps over time, once 718 begins to build as support, that could be a trade. But man, I'll tell you, that's not as easy to determine straight up without me being sick or not. Let's see, 702 was a top here. 722, 722. There's nothing consistent really before this big breakout here back from late April. So on a pullback, just to be very, shoot from the hip and tell you the truth, like I would have looked for 7, and I likely would not have been filled because it bounced up beforehand. It's a shame. Now, again, is there anything that can get us in the trade, though, after that point, though, as it pulls back to 7? It makes that, close touch to 7, hits 706 and goes up. Well, we did say 718, right? We said 718 because as you look at the run-up that we had some volume filled there, some buying after 7 right here at 718. After that, some big buying at what we'll say is 733. But what happens is on a pullback, it ends up dropping down. It begins to move back up. And right here, it does move over and then pulls back to 718 to hit it as support. But again, that's just easy to say in this example. It's not as easy to do because if you're expecting another pullback down, you don't get it and it just moves back on up pretty quick. So otherwise, what happens right now is this is still making a higher low. Maybe there's an easier trade on the horizon here. This is a freaking tough one to read on the heat map. I would just mainly rely on 50-cent levels like 750, like we said previously. There's not much volume sticking out there, at least from the consolidation that was built underneath it. So perhaps just on a test and touch and run, we could see a nice move off 750 here soon, but never as easy to do when the heat map is looking that ugly. That's as ugly as I had felt yesterday. So, we'll see if this ends up making a stronger run over 750. The one thing I will say is that we did have a few touches of it here earlier, even this, where at least there's evidence of buying. At least there's evidence of buying a 750. So the more times it touches it in a shorter concentration, there's a chance that this could look to make a move. Actually, I wouldn't even mind testing the waters myself with the live right here, just on 100 shares, maybe do 200 if I need to, but under the weather, late morning, not really the most ideal trading time of the day to try and jump into something. Now, still, that this touch was at 10:45. Current time right now is 11:40. It's like nearly an hour. That is a long amount of time in between level tests. I had to wait to see this at least touch 750 another time or two before I actually look to jump in. But hey, it's moving on up. All right, so let's see if there's like maybe one more I just kind of poke at here with you before we finish up, folks. As I had said today, this would be more of an abridged traders talk here today. If this just drops back down, then probably going to call it. I wanted to see if there was a chance this can make this pretty nice pop here soon, but no. Well, it looks like here the BNOX trade actually made another pop. So as we were on that trade, looks like this ended up not touching this as support and moved back on up. All right. So was there a better level? Was there something that popped up? Was there something that allowed for that move? Where do you see a dark red line popping up right now on this heat map? Pete, Sam, Barbara, all saying 5, right? 102,000 shares. That is easy to see. That is pretty and easy to see, but look what just happened. They pulled their order and they actually moved it to 474. 474. Why? For what reason? Well, for as much as it pumped up, my thought would be to see it squeeze lower. They want to push this down. What happens, though, is something pretty interesting happens. It looks like they break through. Do they break through that order? Yeah. It looks like that order actually got filled in full. It breaks right over it. Maybe a small part of it gets pulled. Small, but it gets the job done. It breaks over it. So it led to a new little pop. But if it doesn't break over 5 and continue this run up to make higher highs and keep it that way, the bears are going to eventually win the battle. So I think that the reason that order was pulled and placed lower was to squeeze this stock down. And they were doing so at first. But hey, on the other side of the coin are traders that perhaps want to see the stock make another run. This is all easy to say after the fact, mind you. But here, at least we can dig deeper and say there's a battle between the bulls and the bears. Always. It's oftentimes easier to see who's winning the battle, though, looking at trends up and down. But here, as that order gets placed lower, I'm definitely thinking that the bears are winning the battle there, and we should see this crash and burn. The surprising part to me, actually, here is that for a brief moment, the bulls tried to regain control. They broke over this order. It held above it for a bit. It broke over 5 even for a bit and ran up. But why is this where it's at now? Why is this back at 475, 474, where that iceberg order was? Because if the bulls were really in control, if they were going to really win this battle, they would have gotten this way higher at this point, right? I mean, just look what BNOX did last week. So that's where the bears are now winning the battle. I mean, if this fails to get back over 5, then it's a done deal because it's already back at this iceberg. All right, resistance should become support, but we should have seen that over time here. So unless if it runs back on up here right now, I think that this drops. All right, so the NNOX really just kind of stalling out right now, folks. So I don't know if they were moving in tandem or what, but yeah, it looks like it tried to make one more squeak up to 750, but then failed. I wanted to see a nice little firework for us to try and take. I was actually ready for it there for a bit. Great to see Rod joining us on YouTube, actually. Catching your comment right now, Rod. My apologies if I was late there, but the stock breaks below support and tanks from it. Support should initially become resistance, as Rod said on our YouTube channel there. All right, so folks, hey, we're going to wrap up for right now. More of an abridged version of this Traders Talk, but hey, we'll be back in full force for next week. If you wanted to join us inside our live trading room, if you're on our YouTube channel, just make sure that you go right to the top left of the stream, scan that QR code if you're fancy with your phone, that is. If not, then just go right down to the link on the bottom of the stream below there, ctu.co/trial. We look forward to seeing you there either way. But join us with our students like Margaret, Sydney, John, Charles, and all of us just joining us there right now. I look forward to seeing you back here later on this afternoon. I believe that Rich will be tagging in for me to do the afternoon meeting. Hopefully be good to go tomorrow 100%. Hopefully you get a 100% Josh for tomorrow and going forward. And definitely by next week, we'll be good to go for a full edition of Traders Talk, folks. All right. So, hey, best of luck trading going into the rest of the day today. And we'll catch back with everyone later on in